It wasn't the snowfall, the Christmas lights, or the carols echoing down the street that caught my attention, it was her voice. Soft. Curious. A little shaky, as if she already knew the answer and feared hearing it. "This Christmas, what's your wish?" she asked, standing in the warm glow of the bakery window. For a moment, I wanted to lie. I wanted to pretend I had something normal to say, something bright and festive. But instead, I looked down at my hands, breathed once, and whispered, "Don't tell anyone." I wish I wasn't alone. I didn't expect her reaction. I didn't expect her to step closer. And I definitely didn't expect my entire life to change because of one sentence spoken on a freezing winter night. I met her 3 weeks before Christmas. The town was wrapped in red ribbons, fake snow, and hopeful decorations. But I wasn't hopeful. Not that year. Not after losing my job and drifting away from friends who had once been my comfort. December used to mean warmth, family gatherings, and laughter. Now it felt like an empty hallway echoing with memories. I was working part-time at the bakery, barely making enough to afford rent. Most customers came and went without noticing me. But she didn't. She noticed everything. She always ordered the same thing, a cinnamon roll with extra icing, and somehow her smile always carried enough warmth to melt the frost on the windows. I didn't know why she talked to me at first. She looked like someone who belonged in a life filled with bright rooms and loud celebrations, not hanging around a guy who felt like a forgotten chapter in a book nobody reads anymore. But she always smiled at me. She always asked how my day was. And slowly, she became the only person I looked forward to seeing. So when she asked about my Christmas wish, she wasn't prepared for the truth I had kept buried. I saw her breath freeze for a second, as if the honesty surprised her. Then she whispered, "You're not alone." I wanted to believe her. But believing hurts when experience teaches you otherwise. Over the next week, she stayed longer each day. She'd tell me little pieces of her life, how she was studying art, how Christmas made her nostalgic, how she loved cozy nights but hated big gatherings. One evening, when the heater in the bakery broke, she sat across from me, wrapped in her scarf, and said, "You ever think maybe loneliness doesn't mean you have no one, maybe it just means the right person hasn't arrived yet?" I looked at her, really looked. And for the first time in months, something inside me softened. But the truth is, I was scared. Scared she'd eventually stop showing up. Scared she'd find someone better. Scared I'd go back to the silence that felt like it swallowed me whole. Everything changed on December 23rd. A storm hit the town, the roads froze, and the bakery closed early. I didn't want to go home to my cold, quiet apartment, so I stayed outside sweeping snow from the entrance. That's when she came running down the street, breathless and red-cheeked, holding a small box wrapped in silver paper. "I wasn't sure you'd still be here," she said. I laughed, confused. "Why are you out in this weather?" She hesitated, then held out the box. "Because you made a wish, and I wanted to answer it." My heart stuttered. Nobody had ever said something like that to me. Not sincerely. Not gently. I opened the box with numb fingers. Inside was a tiny wooden ornament carved into the shape of 2 hands holding a small lantern. "A reminder," she murmured, "that even in dark seasons, someone can still be your light." She asked if I could walk her home because the streets were slippery. I agreed. Halfway there, the snow turned heavier, and we ducked under a bus stop shelter. She looked at me, the kind of look people give when they've made up their mind about something, and said, "You know, you're not the only one who feels alone on Christmas." Her voice trembled. "I've spent the last 3 years pretending I was okay. Pretending the holidays didn't bother me. Pretending I didn't wait for someone who actually listened." She paused, staring at her boots. "Then I met you." Those words broke something inside me, not in a painful way, but in a way that felt like a door opening. For the first time, I wasn't the one giving pieces of myself. Someone was offering theirs. We walked in silence the rest of the way, but her hand brushed mine twice, and each time it felt like the world grew a little warmer. When we reached her house, she turned to me and whispered, "Come back tomorrow. Please." I nodded, unable to speak. And for the first time in years, I felt the faint, fragile pulse of hope. Christmas Eve arrived crisp and bright. The streets buzzed with last-minute shoppers, music, and swirling snow. I walked to the bakery, expecting an ordinary quiet shift. But when I reached the door, the lights were off. Instead, there was a note taped to the glass with my name on it. I opened it, and it simply said, "Follow the lights." Confused, I looked down the street. A trail of lanterns, small, wooden ones like the ornament she gave me, lined the sidewalk. My heart pounded as I followed them to the park. When I reached the center, she was standing by the big Christmas tree, its lights glowing like 100 tiny promises. She smiled nervously. "You said you wished you weren't alone." My breath caught in my throat. She stepped closer, eyes shining. "So I thought, maybe we could rewrite this Christmas together." The wind blew softly, scattering snow around us like glitter. She reached for my hand, this time fully, confidently, and I didn't hesitate. "You're not alone," she said again, slowly, deeply. But this time I believed her. I believed every word. I told her something I hadn't said out loud to anyone: "You're the first person who's made me feel seen in a long time." She squeezed my hand. "And you're the first person who made me feel understood." The tree lights reflected in her eyes, and for the first time, the world didn't feel cold. It felt like a beginning. A quiet, gentle beginning carved out of two lonely people finding warmth in each other. That night, I walked her home again. But this time, when she reached her door, she didn't say goodbye. She whispered, "Will you stay a little longer?" And something inside me, something tired and hidden, finally said yes. We sat on her porch under a blanket, sipping hot cocoa, talking about everything and nothing. At one point she rested her head on my shoulder and said, "Funny how one question can change everything." I smiled. She didn't see it, but she felt it, and on that Christmas Eve, surrounded by cold air, soft lights, and the quiet rhythm of her breathing, I realized my wish had already come true. Not in some grand, dramatic way, but in the way real miracles happen, softly, unexpectedly, in the form of someone who sees you when you feel invisible. When midnight struck, she looked up at me and whispered, "Merry Christmas." I whispered it back, my voice unsteady but full. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't wishing for warmth. I wasn't wishing for connection. I wasn't wishing for anything. I already had it, and as the snow fell quietly around us, I understood something I had forgotten: sometimes, the greatest Christmas miracle is simply not being alone anymore.